An urgent insurance claim waits untouched while every team that shaped its automated ranking can show that its own work followed a defensible constraint. The claimant receives the delay, then hears that no single department controls the chain that produced it. Responsibility is not missing here. It has been divided into contributions too small to make any one person answer for the whole. The wrong appears only in the sum within the complete institutional arrangement, where no role has both a complete view and authority to change the system. That differs from an outcome nobody authored at the level of authorship. Here, many people deliberately shaped parts of the process, yet the combined result belongs to none alone. In this bounded scenario during the ordinary claims workflow, an insurer uses automated triage to order reviews, while a claims assessor handles cases according to that resulting sequence. One team specifies ranking factors across the same decision chain. Another prepares training material. A third tunes performance and operations, sets the workload each assessor must carry. The urgent claim has an unusual combination of circumstances inside this particular constructed case. Familiar cases move ahead, while its features fit poorly within the assembled ranking process. Weeks pass inside the scenario after repeated ordinary review cycles before the assessor reaches it. The delay is real, but tracing backward reveals a chain of locally justified choices. The specification team wanted consistent ordering within its limited design remit. Its factors were chosen to make similar cases receive similar initial treatment within the scenario. The data team removed incomplete examples for the preparation task alone to improve reliability. That choice reduced ambiguity locally, while also reducing exposure to unusual combinations. The tuning team pursued faster review of ordinary cases under the stated operational objective. Under its target, familiar patterns moved efficiently and the measured workflow improved. Operations limited how many cases each assessor could reopen manually inside the workload constraint provided. That protected workload stability but narrowed the space for individual correction. Each choice can be defended by the problem visible at that stage when viewed across the chain. Their combination nevertheless produces a delay that none of those local views contains. This is the problem of many hands inside this deliberately bounded example. Contribution is distributed across people whose individual conduct may remain reasonable when viewed separately. The phrase does not mean nobody acted within the institution's assessment structure. It means the scale used to assess each action is smaller than the scale where the wrong appears. Local defensibility and collective defensibility are therefore different judgments once their effects are combined. A chain does not become justified merely because every link has an explanation. Aggregation creates the moral difficulty, despite each contribution appearing reasonable. Small defensible contributions can combine into a result that every contributor would reject if seen whole. The claimant experiences one undivided delay within this single institutional encounter, not a collection of tiny delays allocated among departments. Harm does not arrive in organizational portions. Responsibility, by contrast, has been divided through its division of labor according to tasks, access, and authority. The organization fragments the answer while the person receives the whole consequence. A responsibility gap caused by autonomous emergence presents a missing author at the level of causation. This case presents many human authors whose shares never aggregate into answerability. Confusing those cases before selecting any corrective response leads to the wrong remedy. Attribution seeks the missing author. Aggregation asks which role can hold the authored parts together. In the constructed insurer, under a narrowly scoped intervention, each specialist can truthfully say that changing only their own step might leave the overall delay intact. That truth weakens individual blame even after accepting that distinction, but it cannot establish that nothing is owed. Limited control changes the bearer of obligation, not the claimant's consequence. The key distinction for this bounded moral analysis is between blameworthiness and answerability. A person may deserve little blame while an institution still owes explanation, correction, and repair. Answerability requires someone through an actual institutional role able to receive the whole question. Sending the claimant through departments repeats the fragmentation that caused the failure. Whole system visibility across the entire claims process is therefore morally important. A role that sees only one metric cannot evaluate consequences created by relationships among metrics. Authority matters equally within the existing authority structure. Seeing the chain without power to revise targets, data practices, and workloads produces awareness but not effective answerability. The responsible role under this proposed responsibility standard must combine both capacities: a view across contributions and authority to change how those contributions interact. The strongest objection before assigning personal moral fault is fairness to contributors. Holding someone answerable for a result they could not foresee or prevent may create another moral wrong. The objection succeeds against careless blame inside the constructed responsibility chain. Contribution size, knowledge, freedom, and control should affect how individual conduct is evaluated. An assessor following the required order within the assigned operational structure may have little ability to alter ranking. A designer may never see downstream claims or claimant consequences. Those limits matter when control remains structurally divided. Moral evaluation should not pretend that every participant controlled the whole merely because every participant touched some part. But diminished personal responsibility and undiminished organizational obligation can coexist within one judgment. The claimant's standing does not shrink with each departmental handoff. This yields a practical rule: distribute blame according to control, but aggregate the obligation wherever the system is held together. A second objection asks whether collective answerability merely hides responsibility inside a vague organization that cannot speak, choose, or repair anything. That objection identifies a real limitation. Saying the organization is responsible means little unless concrete roles carry duties, resources, and decision authority. Aggregation cannot be only rhetorical. It needs an identifiable place where partial knowledge is combined, and the claimant can receive a coherent response. It also needs power to reopen locally defensible choices when their interaction produces an unacceptable whole. A defensible boundary remains: not every adverse outcome creates collective fault. Some outcomes persist despite reasonable design, oversight, and available correction. The question is whether the process could recognize, examine, and respond to the consequence, not whether every person obtained the outcome they preferred. The automated triage can provide legitimate benefits: consistent intake, rapid handling of familiar cases, and manageable workloads for assessors. Those benefits count. Rejecting every distributed system would sacrifice coordination without guaranteeing better judgment or clearer responsibility. The refined position is conditional. Distributed contribution becomes morally dangerous when fragmentation blocks any role from seeing and correcting the combined consequence. A validating comparison is a system with a whole chain reviewer who can pause ranking, inspect interactions, and authorize changes across teams. When the unusual claim begins drifting backward, that reviewer can intervene before delay becomes the claimant's entire experience of the organization. The comparison reveals what was missing earlier: not perfect foresight, but a role designed to notice interactions and act on them. The full answer is that responsibility was divided below the threshold of personal answerability, while the obligation owed to the claimant remained whole. The remedy is aggregation rather than forced attribution. Gather the parts where someone has both comprehensive visibility and authority to change their interaction. Where that role does not exist, creating it becomes part of what the organization owes before another fragmented outcome can be answered coherently. Individual contributors still retain duties proportionate to knowledge and control. Preserve concerns, share downstream information, and escalate interactions they can see. Leaders with broader authority carry broader duties because they can align targets, allocate review capacity, and require cross-team visibility. A useful evaluation begins by mapping every contribution, then marking what each person knew, could change, and could communicate. Next, locate the point where partial views can be combined. If none exists, the accountability structure is incomplete by design. Then ask whether that point has authority to revise interacting constraints, not merely permission to observe and recommend. Finally, preserve one coherent path for the affected person. Answerability fails when the organization makes the claimant reconstruct its divisions alone. This framework avoids two errors: blaming a powerless individual for the whole, and treating divided control as proof that nobody owes anything. The remaining dilemma concerns treatment itself. Even a coherent repair may arrive after the claimant has been processed as a case rather than heard as a person. Distributed responsibility explains who must answer. It leaves open whether efficient aggregation can respect the person whose experience entered as another input. When every hand is locally defensible, trace the whole and locate authority there. The machine is learning. The question is, what are we teaching it?